at that point, you're not there to play it safe. Like if you're not taking risks, you're not competing.
It's empowering. I mean, anybody who's done a CrossFit workout, you finish your CrossFit workout and you're like, I'm on top of the world.
Yeah.
Like a hunger for competition and like that super intense structure, routine. I still had that desire.
Listen to the way people feel and the motivations for doing the things that they did. It was like they were describing me to a T.
I'm not trying to solve everything for you, but I know that sometimes you just need somebody to listen.
Learned the most is how to fill my cup by filling others.
Welcome to the Hungry Dog Barbell Podcast. Join me as I talk with passionate people about their life's failures and successes, and most importantly, what keeps them hungry for more. What up, dogs? Welcome back to the Hungry Dog Barbell Podcast. We got Melanie Washburn back, friend of CrossFit King of Prussia, friend of me, friend of the podcast. How are you, Mel?
I'm good, Taylor. I'm really excited to be here again, and I appreciate you having me back on the pod.
You still out in Arizona? How's it going?
Still out in Arizona, Flagstaff. It's going really well. We kind of have a heat wave right now, so that's always nice with a garage gym. I mean, pretty much any CrossFit gym has, no AC, and we're just utilizing the open doors. But yeah, I spoil my clients with I have a fan that has misters on it.
Oh, that's big, dude. That's so good.
I know.
I saw my old gym, they have like a truck that mist off of it. So if you like go right down the stairs outside, you get that big wave of water hitting you in the face. I'm like, oh, that's a little caveat,
Yeah, special.
So we got like a little heat wave going on out here right now with the Canadian wildfires. I don't even know if that's what's really happening out there. That's just what I hear on the news. It was so smoky out here for like 3 weeks, and it's just continued on to be super humid from there. So the past like 2 months have been just disastrous. Like if you've ever seen an episode of what's the name of that show, Ozark, with Jason Bateman.
Oh yeah, yep.
It's like a blue hue, like the camera that they use, and then the town is supposed to look real gloomy. That's what it was like here for like a good 3 weeks. It was terrible.
Oh my gosh, were running workouts like kind of rough? Like was it hard to work out outside?
Ooh, it was so bad. Like one day I came in here, my first day coaching while it was like that. I went to open the garage doors because it's like, well, is it better with it or without it? And it was smoky in here. Within like 15 minutes, we had to close it,
Yeah.
So not only was it hot, this became like a hot box then.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have no room to complain. I'm hearing I would much rather deal with my dry 90-degree heat than, yours with what sounds like smoke and humidity as well.
It's terrible. And now that it's just heat, it's better because we're used to this. Like when you have natural disasters like that going on, it just makes everything totally unbearable. If anyone out there is listening that knows more about the Canadian wildfires, please let me know. Explain it to me. Actually, I should just post that to Instagram because I want to know more about it. They told us that, and I'm like, well, why is it like that for 3 weeks? So if anyone out there is listening, send me a comment, explain it more to me, get sciencey, get nerdy on me.
Teach us about fire activity.
Teach us about fire activity because they're like it burned for they had to let it keep burning for 2 weeks. And I'm like, in my head, if something is on fire in this room right now, I'm gonna put it out. But maybe I'm just an idiot, What's going on here? But Mel, tell me right now, what's going on? You were just talking about how you have a gym in your garage. How's that going for you? What's like a week to week look like? Do you do the programming? Like how many people do you have coming in and working out with you? All that stuff.
I'm currently in the lovely job of doing it all, being the business owner, which has its ups and downs. So I got a lot of control over everything, which is awesome for my type A personality, but not so great for work-life balance. But I've been able to do pretty decent at that. So I have classes Monday through Thursday, and I offer around 5 classes a day. I have masters, I teach one adaptive athlete, and then the rest of them are just regular CrossFit classes. And they're more like small group personal training just because I can only do 6 max. So people get a lot of good individual one-on-one time and a lot of coaching because of that smaller atmosphere. But it's a lot of fun. And so I actually did affiliate. So now I'm CrossFit Precipice.
That's dope.
So that was back in May. So that's was a long time coming, something I've been wanting to do for a while and finally pulled the trigger on it. So that was exciting.
That's so awesome. So what was like that process like for you? Was it an easy thing to sit in your name? Well, actually, before we even start that, how did you pick the name?
Yeah, Precipice. So my first name, Salis 360, was not something I was very tied to. At first, I was like, yeah, I like the idea of it. I think it fits me well. And then like
Yeah.
after probably 6 months of my business being open, I was like, that's a lame ass name, but you just gotta like whatever, stick with it.
It's the first
At
thing
least
though, you know, like
yeah.
it's just how you started.
Yeah. You go, you learn as you go, right? So when I decided to affiliate, CrossFit Salus was already taken,
Mm,
and you can't obviously have two CrossFit. Like CrossFit headquarters won't allow multiple CrossFit gyms with the same name. So I was like,
right.
okay, it's a great opportunity for me to figure out a name that I've actually like is going to stick and I feel really good about. So I actually just started looking up adjectives, and I just started to kind of look at the list of just like what speaks to me. And
Mm,
doing that, I found Precipice, and that just kind of spoke to me in a sense of like overcoming like a feat is kind of how
mm,
I think of it. So it's of course like scaling a sharp mountain face.
right.
And so to me, it's just like overcoming whatever challenge that's in front of you. And I think that that's a huge piece of what I love about our community, what I love about CrossFit, what I think is an awesome piece of when people really start to lean into CrossFit and do it a lot, get the benefit from of just like knowing you have a mountain in front of you and just being like, fuck yeah, I can do that. Like you don't
Fuck
doubt
yeah.
yourself. So
Yeah. I
yeah,
love that, dude. That's so awesome.
thanks.
What was like, how long was the list of like adjectives that you wrote down, like the short list where you were like, okay, I'm gonna whittle it down from there?
I don't know if I remember that. Maybe 3 to 4.
Mm,
But it was very clear that Precipice was that's the one that really spoke to me. The other ones I was kind of like, yeah. So
yeah.
just kind of went with the gut.
Yeah, it's so weird how the universe works, right? Like you can write out a short list of things like or topics or just have choices to make and you're kind of unsure, but one always sticks out to you, right? Almost like it's in bold, but you just wrote it regularly. It's so crazy how
Right.
the things come full circle and you make choices like based off of that. So then what was the process like for you to actually affiliate then? Like, was it easy, clear cut? Was there like a plan laid out? Did you know how to do it right away?
I didn't. It's fairly simple though. So CrossFit headquarters has you fill out like a application form, and they have you write out your why, and they have you really kind of focus in on some questions that I think they're just trying to get you to start to like be like, okay, if you really want to do this, it's something that you should take seriously.
Yeah.
And why did you start doing it? Why do you want to give this to others or provide this to others? And so that was relatively easy for me because I had already been practicing CrossFit methodology for a while out of my gym and having a gym. And so that application felt fairly easy, but it was good to revisit those things. I'm like, do I have the same why now as I did, when I opened in 2020? So
Mm.
that was cool to go through, relatively easy though. And then you have to get insurance, which I already had insurance, but I switched to CrossFit affiliate insurance. It's called RRG. I don't know if you guys use it there at KOP or if Amy uses something else.
I'm not sure if Amy does, but my old gym owner did.
Okay. They're really awesome in a sense of understanding the uniqueness of a CrossFit gym. And then they also offer, which is super cool for anybody who is a gym owner and wants to move to RRG. One thing that they offer that is awesome is if you have a member who for some reason has kind of a freak accident in a workout, maybe they're doing EVA. I heard you guys just did that. Hate that workout. You're doing EVA and you're on your freaking 100th pull up and you tear your pec, right? And you have to go to PT or get surgery. They will help pay for the medical
Mm.
bills of that member if the injury happened in the CrossFit gym
Oh,
because of
that's
the CrossFit
awesome.
class. Yeah.
There you go. So for all the talk out there about what is CrossFit HQ doing, where's your money going? I mean, there's a simple answer right there, straight from a brand new affiliate owner, what they're
Right.
doing. That's good.
Yeah.
So we talked a lot on the last episode that you were on, Mel, and like I know kind of why you do fitness and why you are a lifelong learner, but what's your why for being a teacher and a gym owner and a CrossFit coach?
I think so for me, CrossFit was so formative in how I viewed myself and the positive light that I now view myself in. I think before I just had a lot of like negative talk. I just really doubted myself a lot. That still sometimes happens, but it's a lot better now. How I viewed my body before CrossFit was in a very negative light. And for me, once I really started to adopt the CrossFit methodology, started to get very involved in the CrossFit community, those really shifted for me and shifted my mindset. And that was such a powerful shift for me in helping me lead my best life. And so that to me was just one of the biggest gifts of my lifetime. And I want to give that gift to others. I want everybody to be able to have that opportunity. And so, yeah, that's my big reason of why I own my CrossFit gym, why I stick to the CrossFit methodology and really believe in it.
I love that. Like, it reminds me of one of my first coaches. He explained it. He had a very similar why, and so do I, what it was like. Like, CrossFit is this big flame, and it helps so much of us, like, to be cheesy, like see the light, like see ourselves in a different light. And then a lot of us coaches get into it by taking a little bit of the light and then help passing it on so that everyone else can share a part in it,
Yeah. What I'm hearing too, which is like a big thing of why I gravitate towards CrossFit, is the depth. Whether it's the depth of the relationships you build with the athletes, because it is that 100 group community versus 2,000 in a day, or if it's like the depth of like, yeah, we do really shitty workouts that are hard, but like we just lean into that depth on whatever level that it's at. So yeah, I could 100% understand and get behind that.
Dude, I don't care what anyone says. There's no better bonding than doing something shitty with someone, like on purpose, voluntarily, and then making it through together.
Yes.
Like that's just different. Like when you're like, the Misfit crew, like Mitter and the older people that come in here, dude, they are CrossFit to me. Like, as they'll walk around the room dying and just being like, here we go, let's go, another rep, keep going, all that stuff to other people around them. That like camaraderie that they have is like, yo, that is CrossFit, not someone with a 2-minute Fran time, like what you're doing right now is CrossFit to me. Like, that's what it is.
Yes, absolutely.
But let's get back to you and like your journey. So you affiliate, and you talked about having a cap before, like in your garage gym. Did that like just like work itself out, or how did you make that cap? Were you like, oh, this is what the square footage that works, or like, how did that go?
Yeah, at first I had taken a recommendation online that I had seen from another CrossFit gym. I think it was maybe like Jason Khalifa's like NC Fit recommendation of around 100 square feet per athlete. And so I have a 400 square foot garage, and that's where I started, was 4. And then just recently as well, in the past 2 months, I joined Affiliate University, the guys who have best hour of their day. Jason Fernandez and Ackerman. Yep. They had actually recommended that I try to start seeing if I could do 6, which at first I was like, oh, okay, I don't know. And then I'm like, okay, I'm just going to trust this. And we're going to see how it goes. Like, it's good now in this time of year where I can have the garage door open, and it's in the warmer months where I can try to figure out how to make that 6-person cap work versus what I'm used to is 4 before I have to start closing the door. And, where I think shit gets really real, because then you're not able to kind of go out into the driveway at all.
Yeah. So you get that like, little overflow. What was this first 6-person class like, where you first had like 7 of you, because plus you, in your garage? Yeah.
So that's actually only happened once so far. So thank the Lord. But when it did happen, I think it went fine because I had prepared for it. So I didn't get in the mindset of like, okay, well, I've had 4-person or 5-person and it's been okay, like in my lesson plans, and not just kind of getting lazy with that. Cause at first I was like planning for even like 8-person classes if someone like walked in and you didn't expect it. Right. And so I was planning for that, and I didn't let that lax in my lesson planning. And so I think because of that, when it finally did happen, those few months later, I was ready for it and was ready to pivot. Okay, we're going to share these barbells. You're going to do this while this other person does that. And then we're going to switch, or, forming people in kind of different groups and having them focus on different things. So it went relatively well, but I mean, a good amount of lesson planning has to go on the back end for that to work.
That's awesome. Mel, how do you keep yourself from getting lax, like you just said? Like, a lot of people, if they had, like, even as their career, a garage gym where they're running this, they wouldn't do lesson plans anymore. They wouldn't have the notes that you have right with you. They wouldn't like travel to Pennsylvania to go learn from other people. How do you keep yourself from being lax?
Fear of failure.
Oh, that's such a big one, dude. That is so honest. Like, people ask me that shit. I'm like, dude, I am scared of not doing well. I'm scared of like someone coming into my class and being like, that's the same class I took a year ago,
Right.
How long have you like known that, or like been conscious about that?
So that I feel like that really became a big awareness for me when I started working with a life coach about probably like 6 or 7 years ago. And it took, maybe 3 to 4 years of working with her before I really started to say like, wow, this is a huge limiting factor for me. Like, this is what my negative voice in the head is saying all the time. It's like, it's saying these things because it's fearing failure constantly. Yeah. And so it took a long time, a few years, to realize what that fear was and where the voice in the head was coming from. But once I did, it's just kind of freeing. It's like, okay, this is, this is what it is. I know what it is, and we can tackle it.
Did someone recommend that to you? Did you think like, oh, I should go out and do this? Like, what was that process like?
No, it kind of fell into my lap, thankfully. It was when I was living in a condo. I was still in Flagstaff here. And my neighbor above me in the condo above me was the life coach. And she was really awesome. Her name was Tanya Penny. And we talked to each other because we were neighbors. And I think she was just naturally someone as a life coach that like you're willing to open up to, because she's just a warm, friendly, welcoming person. And it was just one day where she said, hey, I offer this. Like, I think that you could really benefit from it. Consider taking this free course that I'm going to do next week and check it out. And I think once I took the course, I was hooked on it and signed up for her year program, where each month we had like a different key that we focused on, where you kind of broke down like different aspects where you tried to figure out like, what are my fears? What are my limiting beliefs? And, things like that.
Before that, were you a person that easily opens up to people?
Negative.
So how does that compare to something like a physical task? Are you a person that would rather open up emotionally to someone like that, or go do something like Diesel Days or Murph or anything? Which one seems harder to you naturally?
Naturally, probably opening up to someone, but that's gotten better. Like, before I saw my life coach, it would be like 100% I'd rather do a physical endeavor.
Right.
And like, just put myself through that physical pain and
like
break down that way.
You about like someone sees you crying, they ask you what's wrong, and you're like, I'm going to go run 100 miles.
Yeah, exactly. But now that's different. I feel after doing this work, it's probably more like it's slightly more uncomfortable for me to get real with my emotions with people. Like on a one-on-one talking aspect, but it's easier now. Would still lean towards the physical endeavor though.
Yeah, it's amazing, because that's proof that you can turn a negative connotation, a negative thought in your brain to the positive.
I think I had to shift the mindset and this is still hard for me. I had to shift the mindset of actually trying not to say the word failure, and instead saying like a learning experience. Like, as you were talking about your Brawl in the Burb shirt scenario, it's like, well, you had to fail in that 1 year to learn that now you do it 4 months in advance. So it's like, there is a good thing that can come out of quote unquote failure. So instead of saying like failure can be such a negative like connotation and perceived word, that sometimes I think it's just important to say like, okay, I fear more of like new experiences. And so, and when I put it in that concept, it's like, okay, like, yeah, I fear those, but I can still lean into them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Like I can do it, I can still do this. Like the confidence in yourself that like that happened before, but that doesn't mean that that's going to be my forever situation. Like that kind of mindset. So,
and knowing it's okay to fail as well, like just knowing that you can do your best to plan. And then if things still don't go okay, like that's okay. Like telling myself it's okay. We're just going to learn from it. We're going to do better next time.
100%. Like, and I forget where I've heard this before, but someone taught me like to flip the phrase from what if to even if. Even if it goes that way, even if the worst thing happens, I'm still going to make it through. Like, I'm not going to let that stop me. Even if what I'm thinking in my head goes wrong, I'm still going to keep going,
I like that.
Which is, I forget where I was. I wish I could give credit out there, but, once again, you hear this, comment on the thing, let us know how it goes. So as we were talking about physical things and physical challenges, tell me about Diesel Days. That's what it's called, right? I saw you made that post earlier, and I only know about it through Amy, who's friends with the people that are involved in it. Tell me, how did that come about? How did you get involved? Everything.
Yeah, so I heard about Diesel Days through my mentor, Lisa Ray. And also when I was in Boulder last time at CrossFit Roots at Nicole Christensen's place, she had talked about it then as well. And I knew that it was an event that selfishly you could get CEUs for if you're a level 3 in CrossFit for.
Hell yeah, I'm all about it.
I know, right? You get a lot too, because it's such a long event. But that was obviously incentive to just try to start to look into it. And then once I looked into it, I was like, this is something that I think could be really beneficial for me, like mindset wise.
Yeah.
And so after I started digging in, they maybe do, I want to say maybe only like 4 to 5 events a year. So it's, there's not many, and they do it outside. So they have to plan it around a certain time of the year. So I just kind of put a reminder on my calendar to like check back in when they had their next series of events posted for registration. And I just said, I'm going to pull the trigger. I'm going to do this. So
hell yeah. So
yeah.
What is it exactly?
Yeah. So it's a 24-hour event that supports psychological development through utilizing mindset tools, specifically like one mindset tool that he teaches you at the event. But you go through this really challenging physical event to apply these mindset tools. And so you learn those like the first night, and then the next night you do 24 hours of physical exercise. And it's very CrossFit like. They asked to not share the specifics of the event, just to keep it kind of the mystery of like people coming there in the future, not really knowing what you're going to get into.
I love that. Oh man.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's the gist of it. And so Tosh is the owner of the company. His company is actually called Crooked Butterfly, and Diesel Days is one of the events. And so it's at Tosh's house. His partner is Nicole Carroll. So it's at their house in kind of the mountains of Boulder, which is really beautiful property.
How did that affect you? Did it work? Do you feel like you were changed after it?
Yeah, I do. For me, the big goal of going into it was to prove to myself that I could do something really challenging, where I did have a fear of failure, specifically around like right now I'm trying to look for a place to rent, to move into a larger space. And with that comes a lot more responsibility of being a CrossFit owner and a lot more stress, and then cost of overhead increases. And so there's been a lot of fear around that as I try to look to move to a larger space. And so for me, it was kind of taking that fear and trying to just tackle it by saying, I'm going to do this event. I'm going to prove to myself that I can do something really hard. So, it just kind of, it was in alignment with that challenge in my life right now.
Yeah. Everything kind of parallels each other,
Right. Yeah.
As you're preparing to rent a space and expand, like, and those negative thoughts come back in, like, what are some ways that you go about like combating them?
Yeah. So I definitely think this is something that I can go over. Like the concept of what Tosh teaches you is checking in with the left hand, and each finger has a concept. And these are things that you can use when you're in a challenging situation, whether it's physical, whether it's mental, whether it's at home, at work, with a relationship, like whatever it is, you can check in with these fingers, right? One is maybe going to apply more than the other in whatever scenario that you're in. But the first one is the thumb, which is like, that's the, I'm okay. Like you can just look at it, give yourself a thumbs up and just say, I'm okay. And saying it out loud, I think is really important too, which is what Tosh talks about. And it allows you to sometimes to just take a deep breath, because I think sometimes in scenarios where we get worked up or have a lot of anxiety, we kind of tend to just tense and hold our breath.
Yeah, we don't even realize it, right? Like I say it to so much to people, like just in workouts, like, hey, relax, Relax.
It's okay. It's just a workout.
Yeah.
So yeah, just being able to say that I'm okay, right? And what's interesting about all these fingers before I go into the rest of them is that they're so simplistic in nature, which I think is actually really important, because when you need to apply them in the moment, like that's the only way they're successful, I think. Like if you try to be like, I don't know, the thumb is, I can't even think of an example of like making
big
it like,
and grandiose,
right.
Never gonna remember.
Yeah, totally.
Because something like that, it's almost become second nature. Like things that I say to myself, like even just unconsciously, or when I'm walking up to the bar, you got this, or just something small. I think that is super impactful, just like you said. Absolutely.
The index finger is our excuses. So what we point to is our excuses. So you can kind of take it into consideration of what you just said with the athletes of like, oh gosh, can we get different music? Or what would happen if the music turned off? You know, you can point the finger and be like, oh, I'm not doing well because the music's not on or because Taylor did this.
Oh, yes.
And then, but instead the focus should be when you point a finger at something, there's 3 fingers pointing back at you, which this is like, you know, you've heard this probably in some capacity, this kind of comment about the pointer finger and 3 pointing back. But the focus on this is, okay, well, what is ownership of 3 things that I can take on, right? Like, don't focus on what you're pointing at because that's probably not going to change, right? Or for example, in this event, it was outside. It was fairly hot at one point. The sun was just like beating down. I could have just been like, oh my God, well, I'm not doing well. The sun's so hot. And it's like, well, that's not going to freaking change. So what can we do?
The sun's always going to be there.
Yeah, it's going to be there, hopefully.
Fingers crossed. That's funny.
Next episode, apocalypse.
Episode 3, Mel comes back. How are you surviving the apocalypse?
Yeah, right. But yeah, it's trying to realize what ownership can I take, and thinking of those three fingers pointing back at you and trying to figure out what are those things. So for example of like the sun, it's like, okay, maybe one of the things I can do is get a sun hoodie on. I brought that, great. I'm going to throw that on, or I'm going to put some more sunscreen on, or I'm going to like douse myself with a water bottle in my next lap or whatever it is. So focusing on those things rather than, because sometimes our mind can just get so hooked on like what we think is the problem. Yeah. And it's just like, it's not getting you anywhere. It's kind of like that rocking chair. Like it's just giving you something to do, but not actually doing anything. So what are things you can do that actually will improve the situation?
Oh man, what you just said was so deep right there. And I got it exactly what you mean. Like when you're in that rocking chair, you think you're doing something, but you're in the same place. So totally. Like when you're blaming someone else, you think that you are fixing whatever you feel like was the mistake before, but you're just in the same place. You have the exact same outcome, you know. Now what's going to happen next time? Man, I love it. Keep going.
Middle finger is I bet you can guess it.
The fuck you finger.
The fuck you finger. That's right. It is. And so in a short endeavor, like if you think about it in a short physical endeavor, in like what we did in this actual diesel days, 24 hours of exercise, it's okay, my ankle kind of starts to hurt at hour 16, right? Yeah. Or I start to get this little funny feeling. And it's kind of just probably looking down at that ankle or wrist or whatever. So you just kind of be like, all right, fuck you. Like I'm doing this right now. Let me do my thing. And so I think the focus there was not allowing specifically physical things to define us. Instead, just saying like, okay, that ankle pain's going to be there. I'm going to, for now, just kind of say, fuck you. Let me try to do this thing and not let it consume me. Right. Yeah. And then if it continues, he did mention, like, if it does continue, then of course you're going to try to assess it. But for the most part, like a lot of the pains that we're dealing with in the moment are things that we can say that F you to. Right. Like I can handle this. I can work through this. And that's what we're going to do right now.
Yeah. I love that. So, like I'm tougher than this, you know, that's why I'm here.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the ring finger was commitments. And so these are internal and external motivators. So because it was steeped in CrossFit culture, this diesel days, it was a point-based system, and you could, you know, get like the highest score, lowest score. Of course, it didn't matter in the end, how you compared to other people. It's what was important to you and what you overcame. But there was opportunity to score more points based on the work that you did. And so that was, you know, for that event, a potential external motivator if you chose to use it. An internal motivator, like for me, like what we talked about, was I wanted to prove to myself that I could do something really challenging in relation to being able to run a successful, larger CrossFit box. And so the thing that I thought was really important about the commitment and ring finger was that when you make those commitments, you need to be in a good mind space. And so you need to be at a place in your life where you feel very calm, things are in control, and that you don't break those commitments if you're in a bad place, whether it's a high or a low. So like if you're on top of the world, it's like, oh, I'm doing great. Oh, okay, I don't need to do that thing anymore. Or we don't need to do that. Like be wary of that. And also be wary, of course, if you're in a really dark place and then you're not going to you're not going to continue that commitment. So for example, maybe it's something around nutrition, like, yeah, I'm going to track my macros every single day. And then my high would be, oh, I see that I'm 10 pounds less on 10 or 15 pounds less. Great. So I don't need to do it anymore. Right? Probably not true. You need to still commit to the thing that you practice, versus the low end would be like, oh, okay, well, it hasn't really been working, probably because you haven't been sticking to it very well.
Or being honest. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and I'm starving. Well, I'm just going to have this. I'm going to break it. And I'm just going to have this, couple of donuts or whatever it is. So it's just like trying to really check yourself at those moments of high and low, of just like, you really should try not to break your commitments at that point, because that is your weakest point of mentality, is the highs and lows.
We're at the edges of what we can handle is where we're truly tested, things like that.
Yeah.
The number 5, pinky. Here we go.
The pinky. It's just the small things. So it's things that, again, it's like you're focusing on, how can I improve this situation? And so, for example, in the 24-hour event at Diesel Days, it was, okay, I have a lot of hot spots on my feet. I got some blisters that were kind of challenging to work through, but it was like, okay, what's one small thing that I can do to help this not get worse? And it was like putting salve on my feet, like a certain kind of salve, every time or every 2 hours. So just kind of like, that was a small thing that I could do to help improve the situation. I think of it on like a relationship level, or if it was something like where you're having a challenge in a relationship, just like a simple, like, I'm sorry, or just being able to be the first person to say, I'm sorry. That's a small thing that you can do that will really help improve the situation. So just trying to recognize what are those small things and executing on them.
Yeah. So many people overlook those like so often, right? Like you make a mistake, you're always trying to like overdo fixing it. It's like, what can I do right now at this moment? Like that is almost from the heart, because that's what the small things can feel like, right? Like you truly meant that, like a small, intimate kind of thing. That's awesome. So leaving on the plane, going home, how did you feel? Did you feel like you proved to yourself that you could do something hard? Was it successful?
Absolutely. I felt it was really successful. I think at the very end was kind of my aha moment. So it was like the last like 14 minutes of the event, there was an opportunity for me to get like another good amount of points in, but it was going to be a really hard push to get that. And like by that point, I was kind of like, well, there's no way, based on like my last time or whatever it was. And so like, I was just going to call it at that point. And like, what's, 14 minutes in a 24-hour event,
right?
Tosh was like, I'm going to tell you to do. I'm like, God damn it. Like, yep, you're going to go do it. You're going to do the thing. You're going to try to get these points. And that was really important for me to do, because it was like the not giving up on yourself in that last little bit, when you are like at the weakest point of just like, oh my God, I'm just exhausted. And so it encouraged me to do that. What was also really cool is at that point, what I was doing is going in a trail, and Nicole Carroll actually kind of came running up behind me, and she's like, okay, we're going to do this, girl. And she like pushed me through that. And I came in like 1 minute past the time cap. So it was like my fastest time of that event, like of that whole 24 hours. And the importance there was just like the help of others and encouragement of others is so important. And that was huge for me, because I think I realized that that's a huge external motivator for me. Is I have, a huge mentor here in Flagstaff, Lisa Ray. She's a CrossFit OG. And she's that for me in the long run in this, CrossFit gym, is that she's the one who's always encouraging me to keep pushing when I'm like at my points of exhaustion, which is awesome. Like that's so important to have that and have supportive people, whether it's a mentor like Lisa, or if it's the members of your gym, or if it's friends like you, just having people to remind you, like, this is why you're doing this. I know it sucks right now, but you can do this, and we believe in you.
Hell yeah, dude. It goes back to just keeping that cycle going, right? As people give into you, you give back into others, man. And when you're talking about, you go through a whole 24 hours into the last 14 minutes, like something I always think about is that, like people like us, we are looking for tests to prove ourselves sometimes, like whether consciously or unconsciously. And you could be in something, you're like, all right, is this the test? Is this the test? And from the outside, a 24-hour event and making it through 23 hours and 30 minutes, like for some people, that could be the test itself, right? But then for you, your aha moment was like, oh, this last little time where I could have stopped and I've already accomplished so much. I could have stopped and not done this. That becomes a test. And then pushing through where you're like, now I see what it was. I went through all that to get here, to prove to myself that I don't have to stop. I don't have to do this. I don't have to negotiate myself out of doing something that I'm doing right now. Right. That's I got that from a Kobe quote where he's like, don't negotiate with yourself. If you said you like the next season, you're going to do everything that you didn't do last season. You're going to wake up at 5 a.m. You're going to train hard. You're going to eat good. You're going to sleep good. The next day, after you've been doing that for 2-3 months, or I should say, after you've been doing it for 2-3 months, don't stop. Like, don't say, oh, I've already done it for long enough. I don't need to keep going. Like you told yourself this is what you were going to do. So just do it. And like, sometimes the hardest thing to do is just the easiest. Like, oh, I could give up right now, but why? Like, I might as well just keep going. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's amazing, man. So back to the CrossFit and learning and education. I'm like 5 weeks out right now for my level 3 test. We talked last time a little bit about you taking yours, but what was the motivation for you to undertake that? Because we both know plenty of level 1 and level 2 coaches that just kept re-upping that, and they don't like go through all this study, submit these hours to actually take the test. So for you, what was it? Why did you want to undertake that?
Yeah, it's a good question. By the way, you're going to do awesome. I'm excited for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, for me, I think it was a little bit of like that competitiveness that I have of just like, I want to be separated from the level 1 and level 2s. I think there's fantastic level 1 and level 2 coaches, like some that are better than me. But it was important to me to say, okay, I want to take it to the next level, and to be able to do that, it's the level 3. And I liked the idea that it's like, it's proving, it's kind of that stamp to the world saying like, hey, I put more value on this, and I'm going to go and study for this test and take it to the next level. And so it was a little bit of like proving it to myself, but also other people that I could do that. And being able to have that L3 as like a stamp.
The distinction between like, hey, I put in a lot of effort to undertake this, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like level 3 to me speaks more that it's a career versus just a hobby.
Right.
And at least for me, right? That's maybe different for other people. But the level 1 and level 2, I think are awesome. I actually retook my level 1 after my level 3, which was great. Like I learned even more things the second time through. But the level 3, because you have that commitment of every couple of years, you have to have CEUs, you have to continuously learn and be in the space and have a certain amount of hours. Like that's what I dove into this for, is to make it a career. And that speaks to me as saying, yes, this is my career. I have a level 3. It's important for me to have that.
So for you, what was the study process like? Actually, before I even ask that question, were you a good student in like high school and college? Was like studying and schoolwork something that came easy to you?
I do think that studying came easy to me. I think that school didn't come easy to me. So like, I think that I was an A and B student, but I had to work hard for that. Like, it just wasn't like I could just walk in and take a test and be fine. Like I had to really study for that test. And so, I'm used to planning and preparing and studying. Like that's an easy thing for me. Luckily. So,
So what was your study process like?
So I took it in May of 2022, and about, I would say like 7 to 8 months before I started committing to like regular study times, I put on I'm a big calendar person and like blocking off time. So I put like 2 times a week, 2-hour chunks, committing to studying the material. And as you know, it's like I think knowing the level 1 and level 2 handbooks in and out, specifically the level 1, is hands down very important, the most important. But then they have like literally over 100 articles in like the level 3 handbook, or I think they call it the
study outline or something like that.
Study material. Yeah. And it's, a lot of them are like what's been posted on the CrossFit Journal, or there's videos.
Years of journal. Yeah.
And I read through every single one of those.
Yeah.
And it just was a matter of chipping through that list. And kind of as I was going through those lists of articles, also like revisiting the level 1 and level 2 handbooks.
It's been awesome to do too. Like, cause I mean, I have the benefit of working with a Flowmaster and seminar staff member, Amy. So I don't ever have to stray too far from it, but reading through and watching the videos that just in the study material alone, before you even get to the manuals, it's like, oh, right. This is what we're supposed to be doing. Right. This is what this methodology really means. This is what this is really rooted in. So it's awesome to like reaffirm and get back to like all the basics and what we're really needed to do and up to the advanced levels. So 7 to 8 months out, because the application is like good for a year. So as you start to whittle down, what does it look like now? 3 months? Like, does your studying change at all?
By that point, like a couple months beforehand, I think I had gotten through all of like the 100 articles.
Right.
So
she's not exaggerating either. There's like a lot when you pull it up.
It's a ton. Yeah. You pull it up, you're like, oh God.
Yeah. Very overwhelming.
It is. It can be. So I think planning and making sure that you're not just like sign up for it and expect to take it next month. Like, don't do that.
Not gonna happen. Yeah.
What I did then was I kind of starred the different articles that I wasn't very confident about. Like if there was information, I was like, okay, this is really new information for me, or I haven't read it before, or I don't feel very confident about it. I just went back to those and reviewed those. So that was kind of like the end of my studying, was just kind of buttoning up the things that I knew I wasn't very confident on.
So what areas did you feel most confident in, and what areas did you like have to star and revisit a lot?
I think a lot of the sciencey stuff is what I had to star.
That's just what it's going to be. Yeah.
Because I also think too, that it's just like, typically when you're coaching CrossFit, you're not going to be saying those things to athletes because it's too complex. You want to keep it simple for them. You want to keep it fun. Like you're not going to give a science lecture at the whiteboard brief, right? Like you're going to get people who are going to get glazed over eyes. And
you in fact should not do that. Should not.
Yeah, because you don't practice it regularly in your coaching. Like those are things where it's like, okay, I like remember this vaguely, but things like the specifics of the metabolic pathways, or things about like obesity and how that like hyperthyroidism and all of that kind of very specific medical sciencey things. Those are things I had to kind of re-review a second time. The things I felt confident on were like the movements that, the 9 foundational movements and other movements in CrossFit, the points of performance for those, how to appropriately threshold train, the methodology of, or like the focus on like what is our CrossFit's definition of fitness, where it's like the hopper, the metabolic pathways, the 10 general physical skills, like technique. What else is the other one?
Technique versus mechanics, those different
testing. Yep.
Yeah.
And so I felt like I understood those definitions and concepts really well. But yeah, the more specific sciencey stuff was where I had to dig in.
Yeah, I heard that. That's going to be most people, unless you're like pure science background and coming to CrossFit, So now on the other side of it, who's this person just pulled in? Maybe Danielle. Now let's bring it up to a week out from your test. How do you feel confidence wise? Like, where's your head at? Are you ready for the test?
I think I felt ready. There was still going back to the little bit of fear of failure for sure. And it's just like, well, I really hope I don't have to take this test again. And, but yeah, I think that I felt very ready for it. I felt good. And when I went in there, there was definitely some questions that I was like, well, I really have no idea on this. And oh, well, you just do the best you can. But that was maybe only 4 or 5 questions. And I don't even remember how many questions it was. They say it in the handbook.
I was just in it. I think 140 and 120 of them are scored, like similar to the level 1 where there's like however many, and then like 5 of them are just practice or like maybe going to be used for the next test, things like that.
Yep. That sounds right. Yeah.
So you're like me. There's probably been a while since you were in a testing center. What was like that feeling like where you're actually going to sit down and take a test?
I think I had a very positive experience. Like the room was like well lit. It wasn't like this, I don't know, dark dungeony place. Yeah, they just kind of could be gross. Like mine was really nice, had some natural light, which was really great. and there was maybe only one or two other people in there. Like there was enough room for like 20, but you know, there was only two other people and they're doing whatever other tests they were doing. They weren't there for the CrossFit, I don't think, but because it's usually just a testing center that does
a whole
whatever,
bunch of
whatever company pays them to.
It's like a SAT kind of testing center place, you know, standardized testing place where like they just outsource that. And that's why you have to pay the money outside of CrossFit, making some money from it too. But that's why, you know, because you were going to an official place. I just had someone reach out to me. She's taking her test, I think, a week before mine. I was like, oh man, it'd be cool if we were like going at the same time in the same place, you know?
Yeah.
It's for a little bit of solidarity. So we have to talk a little bit about like, what do you think that if you could improve the level 3 experience in testing, is there anything that you would add to it, change about it, or anything like that?
I actually think that it could be beneficial for CrossFit to consider doing something like an in-person assessment, like what they do for level 4.
Right.
Like, not as intense as the level 4, but like something that would be in between, of course, what you get in the level 2 and then what you get in the level 4.
Yeah. I mean, something that Amy said to me is that they kind of assume that once you've gone through the level 2, that you have a certain level of coaching already, so that they don't need to test that. And then they're going to test that by the level 4 again anyway. So I guess that kind of makes sense. But I mean, not to toot my own horn, but that's where I would really shine. You know, it's like even if I walked into a room of random people, like you're like, okay, even if you gave me the workout a minute beforehand, that's when I would that would be the highest score on my test. You know, I would feel like, to not have that in there is a little bit sad, but I understand, you know.
I just think that, you know, and I think you actually would be potentially a unique person who could have like something given to them before a minute start time and be able to do really well with it, which is awesome. It would speak volumes about you as a coach. Yeah. But I do think that there's potentially a lot of level 3s out there that actually aren't as good of coaches as we would expect them to be.
100%.
And it's not any fault of their own. It's usually a fault of the gym that they go to, whether they own it or they're a part of it as a coaching staff. It's like, are they having continuous development? Do they get feedback on their coaching from the other people on their coaching team? And like, I think that sadly is kind of a rarity in CrossFit gyms. And I think that's what really elevates you as a coach, is like constantly seeking that feedback or getting that feedback from your team. And so it's one thing to be able to say, okay, I can study all this material and pass a test on it. But then I think it would be valuable to be able to test as well, like what are your skills in being able to interact with people and put on a good class.
Right. Yeah. It's because that's what we do. That's our life sport, you know? And like I said, I understand it, but you know, like that was my interview to coach here. Like my 2 years is tomorrow. And literally the first thing that I did, I came in here, 9:30 class. I met with Amy for 15 minutes beforehand. I mean, I had a little bit of cachet because I knew this gym. I'd been here for a little bit beforehand, but literally she sent me the programming like she does with everybody else. And I came in on a Monday. She wrote it on Sunday night. So I had like a night to know what the workout was going to be. Whoever was going to be in the class was just whoever it was. And then I coached it. That's what it was, like similar to what you did when you came out here. We gave everybody name tags and I just coached the class. And then it was like, all right, now what would you like your schedule to look like the rest of the week? You know, and we have less coaches now, and she was in need of coaches then, but we had enough that she could make it through the weeks. So like, I felt like I passed it in flying colors. And even her, like if you've taken a seminar out there, like they plan the workouts beforehand, but she's told stories of her not being a flow master, her being one of just the trainers, and the head flow master being like, hey, I want you to run this workout. There's 30 people in the class. The workout's fight gone bad. You have this much space. You have this much time. Go, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, I could do that. But just like we talked about with the level 3 people out there that may have passed the test because they're great studiers, we won't know if they all have those skills because that's not a part of the test, you know? Mm-hmm. And when you have that distinction, you would assume that they would all have those skills, right? Mm-hmm. But so if we had any feedback, that's what it'd be. CrossFit out, if you're out there listening, you know, put an in-person part to the level 3, you know, without making me have to pay $2,000 to go take a weekend seminar to do that as well. You know?
Yeah. I mean, I could even see it being like a video submission of like one of your regular classes, like not having the stress of going to a gym that you don't know any of the athletes. instead taking a video of a class that you normally coach and then submitting that, and you have to meet, the 6 coaching criteria or whatever it is. Or a certain level of the 6 coaching criteria. Of course, I'm sure it's hard because it's like you do have the level 4, but like the level 4 is just like, that's a whole nother test. Like that is
rigorous.
It should be absolutely. And I'm sure there's plenty of people who fail that test. Just like if you hear the old CrossFit OGs, like the level 4 used to be the level 2, and that people would just like come out of the room crying, just like, because most of them would fail.
Right.
So no matter how much it's like, can you apply it, and can you apply it well, where people feel like they get a great class and good interaction, they feel they got improvement, they feel like you listened to them and respected them and gave them an awesome workout. Like that's something that you can't test on a computer,
For sure. And you just sparked an idea in my mind. If they did something like you pass your test, you get a probationary level 3, right? But you are then required to go video one of your classes or like a week of your classes, submit it, they review it, and then 6 months later, either someone comes out and watches you or you have to resubmit it. And if you don't improve on the areas that they said you need improvement on of the things that make a quality coach, then it's like, all right, well, you actually have to go back and do this again. That could be one way to do something like that. Probational level 3. It's like, all right, now this is the final part of the test. Prove to me that
that's a really good idea.
That
you can apply feedback, because I think that's a huge piece as well. Like I think what makes a really good coach is can you receive feedback gracefully, and can you apply it immediately?
100%. So, could you like practically put these into your class? Can you apply this stuff?
Right.
For all the people out there that don't have to go through that. And then also for everyone out there listening, if you've never videotaped yourself coaching a class, go do that right now and then suffer through watching the video.
It's eye-opening.
It's tough, but go do it. Like I've done it before. Now that I can feel what the feedback would be for me, even if I don't video my class. Like if I'm standing in a weird angle and teaching people and don't move as I'm coaching my class, I'm like, all right, this is a terrible angle to coach from. This is a terrible spot. Like don't tape your feet here, move. That's just something I've got from watching the videos and stuff back. So Mel, did you get the same feeling like accomplished, like you did something hard after the level 3 that you did for Diesel Days? Did it give you that feeling?
Yeah, it did. I felt on both of those, like a very big high from both of them. And I think different highs because it's like the Diesel Days, you didn't know what was coming and you kind of still overcame it, versus the level 3, you prepped for months ahead of time, but it's still the same concept. You overcame this kind of big feat and you're on the other side just being like, okay, I did that. Hell yeah.
That's awesome. And you kind of still don't know what's coming because they give you the study material, but you don't know what's going to be on the test. And there's different versions and they update it. Like for me, I submitted my application last August. I'm coming up on a year now. And in March, they sent an email out saying that they were going to be going forward using the updated version of study materials. So the updated level 1, the updated level 2.
Yeah.
And reading through it, there's small, slight changes that I've only really noticed one like verbiage change, and that's about it. But you don't know, like, oh, did I just dive headfirst into study things that are all like wrong now? But they don't completely change things. So like that's good at least, though.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for you. You're gonna do great, and then we'll be able to converse next time on being level 3s.
Hopefully, knock on wood, man. I mean, I'm confident in the test because one thing, and I think that you alluded to this earlier, the level 3 is kind of a distinction that I live this and I take part of this more often than I don't. I am conversing about living a lifestyle and going about my day in a manner that's in line with the CrossFit methodology more often than I'm not.
Yep.
So I'm excited for the test too. I think I'll do well. I hope that just like in a month and a week or something like that, we're talking about when do they give you the results? How long did you have to wait?
I got mine right then, like unofficial results of just saying you unofficially passed. And then you got the certificate maybe 2 weeks later in the mail, 2 or 3 weeks later.
Thank God, because my poor little heart can't handle
I know you get it immediately.
Which is nice. Yeah, like SAT scores back in the day, you get your results, another quarter away from when you actually take it. But so what's next for you? Are you going to prep to go out somewhere and shadow for a level 4?
So still, trying to shadow when I can, and get feedback when I can. But yeah, I mean, the goal is to eventually get the level 4. I would say maybe in 2 or 3 years would be a good goal for me to go for that. I still think there's quite a bit of development that I need in order to feel like I'm ready for a level 4. But yeah, I think the next biggest step before that is actually trying to get on seminar staff. So you have to have a level 3 to be able to apply for an internship to get on seminar staff. And so I put that application in. It's been kind of probably just sitting out in space. I think they just collect them, and then whenever they're finally ready to hire, they reach out to you. But I don't think that they're going to be hiring anytime soon, is what my mentor has said. So.
Yeah, staff's like full up right now. Something that we talked about last time, as you are looking to open up a larger facility, where are you at with bringing on more staff?
Yeah, so I very fortunately have Lisa coach a few classes a week for me. So it's awesome to be like, I have a level 4 is my other coach, like fucking badass. Yeah, right. And so she sold her gym over a year ago now, CrossFit Flagstaff. And she's, I think, been missing coaching athletes, because really all she does now is coach coaches. And I know that she has mentioned to me that she has missed that. I wanted my athletes to get an opportunity to be coached by another coach. You know how valuable that is. Right. And then it's an opportunity for me to see a level 4 coach regularly, which is beneficial for my development. And so when I changed to being a CrossFit affiliate, I had asked her, would you be willing to, I have within my budget to be able to pay you 1 to 2 classes a week. And she said, yeah, I'd love to do that. And so that's what we've been doing. And eventually, if I open a larger space, then trying to get another coach, that is something that's a little bit of like a fear based for me, of just like, I would love to be able to make enough money to hire a full-time staff like immediately. So I'm not the one coaching all of the classes and doing all the business things, because that's just like recipe for burnout. But it's also like, that probably won't happen for a little while, right? Like even the really successful CrossFit gyms, like those are the ones that can usually have full-time staff.
Yeah.
But everyone else,
it takes a while to get to that level.
100%. So as much as I'd love to be there right away, I think it would just be, okay, can I get someone who is a member, who is bought into our culture and can coach 4 to 6 classes a week?
So on that note, then what's your confidence level about coaching a coach, right? Because it's different than coaching an athlete, and Lisa has that experience. How do you feel about that?
I actually feel pretty good about that. Like, I think I am a fairly good person at giving feedback for coaches and just kind of being specific on, understanding where they're at in their journey of coaching and being able to say, okay, like, you're a really new coach. I just want you to focus on like making a lesson plan. Or I just want you to focus on this one aspect of the 6 coaching criteria, and then being able to build off that. So I feel fairly confident with that. I think for me, the fear is that I'm not going to be able to find someone as passionate about being a good coach as Lisa and I are. Like, we care so much about being the best that we can for our athletes and being really good coaches. Like, that kind of drive doesn't happen a lot. And it's hard to expect that of someone who's maybe a mom who already has 3 kids that she's taking care of and has a full-time job and is coaching for you 4 hours a week. Like, how much can you expect of that person to be like, okay, well, I want you to like take your coaching from here to here, and I want you to care this much about it. It's like, yeah. So that's something that I've constantly kind of thinking through, of just like, how do I encourage people, if I start building a staff, to be the best that they can be? Because that is so important for me. I don't want to have mediocre coaches on my staff, even if they coach 1 or 2 hours a week. Like, I want them to give a shit, and I want them to have their lesson plan for each class, to execute a really good class. Like, that's important. So we'll see. Stay tuned.
So I'll give you some advice that's secondhand, like that I've heard.
Please do.
from Amy, right? Like, in the beginning, especially, if you have like you and Lisa there that are coaching things, you guys are going to be the super committed people that want to progress in your coaching and take it very seriously. And while you do need to have someone that's going to make a lesson plan and can communicate effectively how to safely work out, right? Like, we'll put it that way. Amy's always talks about, like, for coaches, like outside of me, because or the outside the person that's going to be the head coach, or the person that's going to be on the floor the most, the number one thing she looks for is someone that's like enjoyable to be around for other people. Like if you look at it from a standpoint of like, especially if it's just that one coach that's going to be there for 1 to 2 hours, or maybe even up to 4 a week, when you have 24 hours of scheduled class time, someone that the members like enjoy being around, that brings a positive attitude. They don't have to be an expert on biomechanics if like every time they see them, they're like, oh, that was a great class. They also can't be a complete novice. They can't not know what a unsafe back squat looks like. But if you have someone that people love to be around, then they're going to be successful. And then you could utilize your skills to make them a better coach. Right.
Yeah.
But if you have a crappy person that's always upset, always in a bad mood, and people don't want to go to their class, like, it's going to be a lot harder, but they're like an okay coach. It's going to be a lot harder for you to make them a good person that people enjoy being around,
Yeah.
Something that she talks about, like, hey, like, if there's someone that people like, I can make them into an all right coach. Like, I have that skill. That's what has been like given to me. That's like what my skills are, but I can't take a crappy person and make people like them more,
Right.
So,
yeah, no, that's a good recommendation. I'm gonna have to remember that.
I was gonna say, like, there's secondhand advice that is not for me, because I would have thought just like you. In my mind, if I think about opening my own CrossFit gym, it's like, all right, how do I go get 5 tailors? Where do I find these people?
Totally.
Because Amy didn't tell me that, like, to go pursue your level 3. That's just something that I want to do. Like, that's inside of me. So like when you sit down, you're like, okay, how do I go get 5 of me's? But to be honest, if I open a gym with 5 of me's, it would probably last for 2 months. Because everyone would always be trying to like go do more and more and more. And the things that need to be taken care of in the gym, like just coaching people at the 9:30 and having a good time, they would fall by the wayside,
Yeah, it's a good reminder that like a team is made up of different individuals. If it's the same people, it's like, who knows what that is? It's an assembly line, or I don't know, but like a team should be made up of people who have different skill sets and their strengths are in different areas. And like, that's what makes a team even stronger is, I have a weakness in marketing. I freaking hate it. Like, I would love to be able to have a coach where it's like, maybe they're not the best coach, but people like them and they also take care of my marketing. Like, hell yeah. Like, that's awesome.
Right. So. Exactly like that, but there you go. So there's some secondhand advice from the wise Amy Lyons, as always.
Love it.
Mel, it's been a great another chat here, dude. Another hour like flew by like super quick. Like, whenever I get on calls with coaches of your level, it's like I can talk for 2-3 hours, about a whole bunch of different things. But all right, dude, I'm off now to go train, and actually I have 45 minutes to go study for the level 3. That's what I'm gonna do before my next client there, dude.
Your time block. Here it is.
Yeah, my little time block. Mel, thanks for coming on again.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I appreciate the conversation.
Hell yeah. Guys, this has been Mel. We're getting out of here. Peace, dogs.